death.
Rebuilt it in just months. Phil and Julie had a house fire that cost them dearly, but that only led to fuming about contractors and insurance. They're back home, but is the work all finished? And small business, big tax bill. Find out how entrepreneurs Roxanne and Joe survived April 15th. Plus, a game for the financial novice and a visit with the hot dog guy in Boulder, Colorado. All that and more coming up on Right on the Money, the show you can't afford to miss.
Right on the Money with business journalist and commentator Chris Farrell. Funding for Right on the Money is provided by IHateFinancialPlanning.com.
IHateFinancialPlanning.com. For people who love money but hate planning.
It's the end of the Right on the Money production season, a time I like to stop and take stock. So I thought we could revisit some of the most popular shows over the last season and catch up with how our families have fared since. This handful of favorites touches on some pretty basic episodes in anyone's financial life. Coping with credit problems, insurance, and the troubles that crop up when it comes time to file a claim, the agony and the ecstasy of starting your own business. But first, getting off on the right financial foot when you're young. For that story, we went to the campus of the University of Washington and focused on one freshman experiencing her first taste of financial independence. It was the weekend before the first day of classes at the University of Washington in Seattle. Among the throngs of returning students, 4,600 freshmen were preparing for their first taste of college life. And among them was 18-year-old Sabrina Smith.
It's exciting, but I'm really nervous just to be on my own food, my own place, you know, taking care of myself, doing my own laundry, which up to this point I really haven't done.
Sabrina's mother, Brenda, was on hand to help her firstborn get settled.
You bought like detergent.
Brenda was confident then that along with clothes and mementos from home, Sabrina was also bringing to college a mature attitude toward money and the ability to manage her own finances.
She's always been able to do a lot more than kids her own age. She's had a checking account since last summer. She's done very well with that. She's had a savings account forever. She's been paying her own credit card bills.
Nice to meet you.
Among the new roommates, the topic of conversation quickly turned to financial realities, tuition bills.
Basically, I'm paying with loans. I got a couple scholarships.
Managing those credit cards.
I don't know where I'm going to find the money to pay it back. Yeah.
And even for a responsible student like Sabrina, checking accounts can be trouble.
But it's really bad because I was like overdrawn last month.
And that can cost.
$20. I was like, shoot, dude.
Ellen Braitman still remembers those financial stresses from her days as an undergrad. So when she became a consumer writer, she wrote a book to help students cope with the privations of the college years. Ellen recommended that just as students budget their time for class, study, fun, and work, they budget their expenses.
The beginning of each semester is a really good time to sit down and work on a budget. Figure out how much money you have coming in, where it's coming from, whether it's student loans, money your parents are giving you, savings from summer jobs, and where it's going. Books, tuition, if that's included in what you have to pay yourself, coffee on the way to class, a bagel, a newspaper, rent, phone bill, and figure out how much you have and how that compares to what you're going to be spending.
For young people at college, what's the biggest money pitfall?
The concerts, the movies, the travel, and food. Students often have to sign up for the campus meal plan, some kind of meal plan. And a lot of students either don't like the plan or the hours that the dining hall are open don't mesh with what are their needs. So a lot of students are ordering pizza at night, going to a local restaurant and really spending a lot of money on food when they've already spent money on food on that campus meal plan.
Here at the University of Washington, credit card companies are prohibited from soliciting students. And yet, during our visit, we still found their representatives hawking easy credit and offering prizes like carnival barkers. Financial columnist Janet Bodner, known to our readers as Dr. Tightwad, told us kids shouldn't be chumps for some chintzy merchandise.
Don't sign your life away for a T-shirt. I mean, it's just too cheap. I think that if the child has a good cash management basis in high school, that's going to carry over to college. And I really don't think that kids need credit cards in college. I think that parents have this idea that perhaps a credit card would be good because it would be good in case of an emergency. But really, there are so many cash alternatives nowadays that any emergency a kid might run into could be taken care of by something like a debit card, or even by one of a prepaid cash card that they might have access to, or even overdraft. God forbid something really serious happened, you know, they would have overdraft protection on their checking account.
I asked Janet how students can avoid the trap of living it up at the beginning of a semester, only to end up living like cloistered monks after midterms when the cash runs out.
I think that it's actually to the child's benefit to say, Mom and Dad, don't give me a whole semester's worth of money in September. You know, just give me, you know, $200 per month or whatever you decide that, you know, your budget should be. And just dole it out on a monthly basis. I mean, I think this helps with adults, too, right? Anybody who has access to a large amount of money is going to have a tendency to spend money. That's just life, you know.
Janet's right. By and large, Sabrina managed to get through her freshman year and remain true to her pledge of financial responsibility, with one exception. Here's a recent photo of Sabrina posing with a new outfit that represents Sabrina's one false step in an otherwise successful year. When the credit card bill for the new ensemble arrived in the mail, Sabrina forgot to pay it and received a 30-day notice. The good news is Sabrina took this lapse seriously. She knew this demerit on her credit report could weaken her rating, and she's making sure it doesn't become a pattern. Coming up, this New Yorker rehabilitates her credit rating. But first, a game that hopes to teach players how to avoid financial hard times. The classic board game. Even in these high-tech times of visually exciting video games, people still enjoy rolling the dice and moving the pieces around a humble, two-dimensional board. There's a new game struggling to make it in the board game market that aspires not only to entertain, but to teach. Its designer hopes players will learn how to make the difficult personal financial decisions all of us face.
Well, the object of Hard Times is to be the first player or team to purchase a home, a car, fully furnish that home, and be debt-free.
Financial consultant Andre Johnson created Hard Times for spenders of all ages.
This game is intended for individuals aged 10 to adult, individuals who have not yet been out on their own and not had the opportunity to take care of themselves. Gives them an opportunity to learn some things about the real world before they actually get out there and make some of the mistakes that a lot of us as adults have made, as well as adults who don't have very good money management skills.
Just like real life, Hard Times requires both luck and skill.
Of course, it's the luck of the dice. But then again, what we've noticed is we've done some test marketing with couples who have been together for a long period of time and placed them in competition with couples who haven't been together that long, and all the couples who were together for a longer period of time have won. The way we start is you roll the dice and you move clockwise around the board. 1, 2. When a player lands on the card lot, he or she will take a series of cards. They can choose which card they'd like to purchase.
And also like real life, with poor spending choices can come debt and...
Oh, God, Hard Times. Hard Times, supermarket, $45 times the roll. If he or she could not pay that total, then they would mark it in their overdue bill section of the score sheet, and that total would have to be paid with interest before they could win the game.
And to get out of debt, you need to find a job.
Accountant, yes, $45,000, $3,750 every time I go around. Pay me.
In Hard Times, players make decisions on everything from buying a house to using cash versus credit.
If this game can just help enlighten kids that credit card, there's a bill attached, you have to pay it, so that they don't ruin their credit and put themselves in a hole, starting out. that would be great.
Another person I really enjoyed meeting this year was Latifah Torrance. Her college credit experience was the exact opposite of Sabrina's. And unfortunately, she soon learned that when it comes to credit problems, you can run, but you can't hide.
It's like when bad credit happens to good people.
When we met 27-year-old Latifah Torrance, she knew she'd made some mistakes. It all started with credit cards 5 years ago while attending college in Los Angeles.
As college costs spiraled and my scholarships did not keep up with these costs, I started spending credit card money on groceries or cash advances to supplement the rent, and the occasional concert ticket and CDs.
Latifah moved to New York her sophomore year when she got a line on a great job in the movie business. So she left Los Angeles for the East Coast.
I defaulted. I packed my bags, got on a plane, and left California.
Through months of hard work, Latifah finally paid off all her debt, but her credit problems did not end there.
I felt horrible because I had gone through the trouble of paying back my delinquent charges, but I'm still unable to get a major credit card. Dear Latifah, thank you for your interest in obtaining a Citibank Platinum Select MasterCard bank card. We regret that we are unable to approve an account for you because a delinquent credit obligation, either paid or unpaid, was recorded on your credit bureau report.
Minnesota's Mall of America, a good place to chat with Jerry Detweiler, author and member of Debt Counselors of America, a nonprofit organization that helps consumers get out of debt. Jerry warned of misusing credit cards because they're the first thing lenders look at when they check your credit history.
The credit report is really the foundation of your financial life. It's used by lenders, it's used by insurance companies to decide what kinds of rates you might pay. It's even used by some employers to decide if you'll get a job. So you really have to check your credit report and make sure that it's accurate and up to date.
I told Jerry that a lot of people believe if you pay off your account, it automatically comes off your credit report.
Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. Now, a paid account looks better than unpaid ones, certainly when it comes to negative information. But it will still stay on your report for 7 years, even though you've paid it. Latifah's doing a great job, and she's really on the right track. Her biggest challenge is trusting herself to take on new credit and build the credit references that she needs. She's so nervous about getting credit cards that she doesn't want any. But unfortunately, if she wants to get a mortgage later on, she's going to need those references.
Then I visited Michelle Singletary at the Washington Post, where she writes a personal finance column called The Color of Money.
The most important thing is try not to live beyond your means. It's as simple as that, really. Just forget what other people are doing and just look at what you can afford and long term. And the fact that once you pay off those debts, that is just such a great feeling not to be weighed down by this. And I'm not necessarily talking about your car loan or your house loan, but the consumer debt. Once you clear that slate, you just feel wonderful.
When I got together with Latifah to find out what she thought of our expert advice, she said, as she looked back, paying off her debt was just the first and easiest step toward rehabilitating her credit.
I mean, it is kind of scary that in order to rebuild my credit, I have to do the exact sort of thing that got me into trouble in the first place.
Well, I'm happy to report that Latifah followed through beautifully on what our experts talked about. In fact, as you can see, Latifah's a much happier and more confident spender these days. The credit limit on her Visa was just raised from $300 to $500, but what's really liberated her is her new American Express card. Why? Because it requires payment in full each month. More good news. Latifah took out a $3,000 personal loan for books and other school supplies from her credit union and has already paid it off, leaving Latifah a lot more confident. Coming up, the tax man cometh and the price is paid. But first, the aftermath of a basement fire. Risk. While it can't be predicted, it can be planned for. But sometimes, even getting insurance to manage risk falls short. When we met the Canes, they had been forced from their home by fire, and they were getting impatient, waiting for their insurance company and their contractor to come to terms.
Well, it was Saturday morning.
I was watching TV with my friend after a big breakfast.
And all of a sudden, the smoke detector in the basement went off. And Phil went down to check it, and he opened the door and said, "Oh my gosh, we've got a flame."
Then it was time to assess the loss. What was in that basement? What did they lose?
One thing that pops into my mind is our wedding video. That's gone. And I don't know really right now what might have completely burned up that I haven't thought about yet. You can figure out, oh, geez.
Yeah, like, what happened to that?
Yeah.
Must have been down there.
Yeah.
Phil and Julie found themselves straddling a wide gap between the contractor's bid and the adjuster's estimate.
At one point, there was a difference of about $12,000 between the contractor's bid to repair the home and what the adjuster and the insurance company wanted to put out.
Phil and Julie wondered if they shouldn't be doing more.
What can you do to speed the process up? I mean, is it something that we as insureds can do? I mean, or is it like calling the Better Business Bureau or calling the president of the insurance company? I mean, does it take, you know, us as just normal human beings to startle them and get them, you know, going? I don't know.
In 1990, fires swept through the hills above Oakland, California, destroying almost every home in their path. Devastated by their losses, many residents turned to the members of United Policyholders, an organization dedicated to educating consumers across the country about insurance issues. Amy Bach is the executive director of the San Francisco-based not-for-profit. Amy told us the first thing to do is get 2 or 3 estimates from reputable contractors to repair or rebuild your home. Then you're ready to talk to the insurance company. And don't be afraid to keep on talking.
You've got to be vigilant and you have to be assertive. Polite aggression is how we put it. We recommend that anybody who has a claim of any magnitude, even anything over a couple $1,000s, start a journal. Keep a claim journal, you know, so that when the adjuster says, "Oh, I didn't tell you you could get new carpeting," you can go back and say, "Oh, but you did," and because miscommunication can be a real problem with insurance claims.
Author Janet Bamford told us homeowners need to scrutinize their policy before, not after, a fire or some other disaster. Discovering inadequate coverage after the fact is too late.
One of the ways people have inadequate coverage is that they buy something called actual cost value insurance, rather than something called guaranteed replacement cost. And it's important that people understand the difference. Guaranteed replacement cost will replace that sofa that you have in your living room, even if it's 10 years old and the cash value of it is only $50.
Actual cost value will only get you $50 for that couch, exactly what it's worth, but not enough to replace it. Another common mistake.
A lot of people think that you should cover your house for the market value, and of course that's all wrong. First of all, the market value includes the real estate under it, which, you know, is unlikely to be damaged in a fire or, you know, unlikely to be stolen.
Janet gave us some excellent tips for lowering the cost of your premium, like this one.
A lot of people are walking around with a $100 deductible. You can probably afford more than that. You know, pushing it up to $500 or even $1,000 can lower your premium.
We revisited Phil and Julie on what was supposed to be moving day, but the deadline had come and gone, and 4.5 months had elapsed since the fire.
What contributed to the time was the contractor and the insurance were at odds with what should be replaced. They had to come and meet in the middle. That took some time.
Phil and Julie told me that the contractors had assured them they'd be back in their house in just a few days. None too soon.
Anxious to get home. Like Dorothy says, there's no place like home.
First, the good news. Phil, Julie, and Natalie have moved back home, but the work still isn't done. A day or two after the fire, they signed a contract with a fire and water restoration company that has still not finished the job. So now they're tearing up their contract and having the work completed by someone else. Nonetheless, they're happy to finally be home. And finally, a couple whose dream of owning their own business was beginning to feel like a nightmare. Their businesses threatened to consume them if they didn't get a handle on things. When we met Roxanne and Joe Cabasa, they were up every day at the crack of dawn to run 3 businesses: a cake business, a catering business, and a tea house, all out of their own home. 2 years earlier, Joe and Roxanne were executives with a national grocery store chain, but they traded the security of the corporate life to follow their dreams.
We started out with a business plan, and it looked pretty good on paper. We went out and secured a loan against the property for $150,000. And in our business plan, we thought that it would take about 100 of that to do the renovations, and then that would give us 50 for equipment purchases. And we really blew it.
To complete the tea house, they sacrificed their retirement money.
We started tapping into our 401k. Second biggest mistake. The first was not really understanding what the costs were. The second was not looking for other avenues of resources. So we went into our 401ks.
Which only compounded their problems.
We're faced with huge tax penalties this April 15th, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to meet those burdens.
Tea's a trend on the rise, while coffee's been an American favorite for a long time. John Puckett started with a couple of coffee shops 8 years ago that have since blossomed into 130 across the country.
I really think it's critical to have two things that you focus on as an entrepreneur, at least in retail. The customer side, don't ever delegate that, which is hiring, recruiting, benefits, pay, giving reviews. That's critical for one of them to do. And the other one, I think, is finance. I really think if you outsource who's doing the plans and the budgets and the numbers, you're missing that opportunity at 2 o'clock in the morning to wake up and figure out that, hey, you can do something better by changing a supplier or by restructuring one of the ways that you do your business.
How did John suggest they ride the wave of the tea trend for profitability?
I would counsel them to, beg, borrow, steal. They're in a very interesting segment of the restaurant industry. There are people that we've seen that are doing very well at this concept on the coast, and sometimes it takes longer for the trends on the coast to get adapted by the Midwest and Southeast in our experience, so stick with it.
Then I visited Scott Gislason, a tax lawyer and CPA turned financial planner. We met in a place where rookie restaurateurs like Joe and Roxanne can quickly blow a wad of startup capital, a restaurant supply store. It's Scott's job to cast a disciplined eye on entrepreneurs' sometimes overly optimistic business plans. In his analysis, Scott discovered that only 2 of the businesses were bringing in cash.
Should they cut their losses and get rid of the tea house?
No, by no means. I think I'd be very careful about making any additional capital contributions to that side of the business. I'd say that any contributions going forward have to come out of the cash flow generated by the 2 profitable aspects.
Now, with this big tax liability, will the IRS be friendly and help them deal with the problem?
Well, certainly they can work with the IRS. Friendly, we'll see. The IRS will work with you. They may not be the easiest people you've ever worked with, but they're not going to put you out of business.
Well, Joe and Roxanne's update is another good news, bad news story. They solved their tax problem, but they had to take out a bank loan to pay back taxes. They didn't need more debt, but they were relieved to get the IRS off their backs. More good news. Joe and Roxanne can toast the fact that business is booming. But like a lot of new businesses, they're becoming overwhelmed with the growth of all 3 of their businesses. They're doing so well that they've had to turn away business because they don't have the staff to keep up. But that's a problem they'll enjoy solving. On a trip to the beautiful little town of Boulder, Colorado, we met a guy who finally started his dream business at an age when most people are thinking about retiring.
Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, 1 mile walking north of Cubs Park, Wrigley Field. And I spent every waking moment at the ballpark. And from about the time I was 8, my folks would let me go to the game by myself. It was a mile walking. They were all-day games. And there were 2 old hot dog guys. And these guys were old Armenian guys, which is what my national heritage is. They were friends of my grandfather. And they had the 2 hot dog stands. And I'd go there, and I'd get hot dogs all the time. I'd look at them, put that lower lip out. They'd say, "You want a hot dog?" I'd say, "Yeah." They'd give me a hot dog. I'd run like hell to the other side. Well, I was with Anheuser-Busch for approximately total about 40 years. I had a piece of a beer distributorship. 1 or 2 today?
2 meal deals, please.
You got it.
Everything.
Drag them through the garden.
You got it.
I always tell people I wish I could have afforded to do this at a much earlier stage in my life. The timing is all important because there's so many people, you know, the younger ones that have family obligations that sometimes prohibit them from doing, you know, some things of their dreams. Everybody always has a hot dog stand in the back of their mind. I don't care. Any one of these people here have a hot dog stand in the back of their mind. Whether it's painting mailboxes or decoupaging, you know, whatever. Everybody has that. Enjoy yourself going through the process of thinking about how you would set that up, because that's half the fun. You always want to do, you know, follow your heart, if you will. But sometimes it's difficult, and you have to face, you know, reality sometimes. And the unfortunate thing is some people want to do this at much too early in their career. I mean, they look at me and say, boy, that's what I want to do. Well, that's what I wanted to do, too, but it took me 40 years to get here.
If there's a single thread that runs through all these stories, it's that when faced with a financial problem, you're always better off dealing with it sooner rather than later and head on. Each of the families we met immediately felt better about their financial problems when they started taking steps to solve them. And if you work at it and are patient, who knows? There may be a hot dog stand in your future. That's our show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Farrell, hoping your finances are right on the money.
Funding for Right on the Money is provided by ReliaStar.
With a sea of financial choices today, it can be confusing. That's why ReliaStar is supporting this program. Because it pays to understand. ReliaStar.
Don't forget to visit our website, rightonthemoney.org. You'll find my picks for books, plus information on all the episodes of Right on the Money. And Carl. I was going to get that name out right. Okay. All right, I'll give this a try.
I want to work the controls.
Which was your favorite? Oh, you're going to work the controls. All right.
Try that one.
That one? Okay. Ow.
No, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Do you really feel that you made the right decision? All that and more coming up on Right on the Money, the show you can't afford to miss.
To order a video cassette of this episode of Right on the Money, the best of Right on the Money, call 1-888-MONEY79 or send $24.95 to Right on the Money, Box 55742, Indianapolis, Indiana 46205.
In 1916, Sam Hill and Sam Lancaster built the greatest highway in the history of the world, only to have it abandoned by the next generation. Watch Paradise Road.
Here on OPB, Thursday night at 8:30. Corporate members Elvis and Bonaparte Advertising, Y East Color, and Full Sail Brewing have made contributions to the OPB Program Fund for Excellence. Additional funding has been provided by you, the contributing members of OPB.
Serving Oregon and Southern Washington, this is Oregon Public Broadcasting.
Funding for local broadcast of the Nightly Business Report has been provided by viewers like you and by the following.
SAFE Corporation, managing the human and financial cost of workplace injuries. SAFE Corporation, on the job for Oregon.
CNF. Not everyone understands supply chain management, but we do. We straighten out supply chains for leading companies worldwide. CNF, where supply meets demand.
The chips are down on Wall Street, chip-making stocks, that is, and they lead the way to a sell-off in other sectors. The Dow falls 183 points. The NASDAQ index loses 41. Good evening. I'm Paul Kangas.
And I'm Linda O'Brien. Susie Garib is off tonight. Investors dumped shares of Amazon.com in after-hours trading on continuing concern over when or if the web retailer will ever turn a profit. Then, maxi inventories of minivans are causing problems for Daimler Chrysler. We'll have the details.
Nightly Business Report is brought to you by Compaq, makers of compact non-stop e-business solutions for companies who know that the online world never stops, so their information systems can't stop either. Compaq, non-stop. Franklin Templeton, serving investors for over 50 years. Franklin Templeton and Mutual Series, investment products distributed by investment professionals. A.G. Edwards, providing investment banking, cash management, and retirement plans for businesses. A.G. Edwards, trusted advice, exceptional service. And is produced in association with Bridge, the global financial information company, providing real-time and historical market data, analysis, and news.
Good evening, everyone. Some disappointing earnings reports and earnings fears for the future sent the major averages southward on Wall Street today. The Dow plunged 183 points and the NASDAQ lost 41. Sparking the sell-off, big losses in the technology sector, especially in the chip stocks. Erica Miller reports.
The final number hardly tells the tale at the NASDAQ today. Jittery investors bailed out of technology stocks on concerns about the sector's profit growth. One of the biggest decliners was LSI Logic, which fell about 33%. The world's biggest maker of custom semiconductor chips reported second quarter earnings of 29 cents a share, right on target with estimates. But revenues came in about $20 million under forecast. The company blames the weakness on a parts shortage, as well as shipment delays. Concerns about LSI spread to other chip stocks. The SOX, or Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, plunged more than 6% today, to its lowest level in almost 2 months. But analyst Vincent Benedetti says the sector remains attractive.
Once the momentum of this selling starts to slow itself down, and once we start to really get through the seasonal slowness of the summertime, I would start to look for selected names in the group that are proven leaders.
Weakness in technology stocks has been weighing down the NASDAQ. It is now down more than 20% from its March high. Much of the decline has been on worries about slowing profit growth in the future as a result of rising interest rates. But analysts say a supply-demand imbalance is also plaguing the NASDAQ.
Inflows into mutual funds have started to slacken. I think that's a seasonal thing, but it does create less demand for stocks in the short term. And I also think in the short term that supply is increased because the IPO calendar and the secondary calendar is building up again. Deals are starting to come out, so that's increasing the supply.
Right now, the NASDAQ is in the red for the year, down 2%. And analysts don't see much immediate upside from here. They say most of the positive news on the earnings front is already factored into stock prices. Erica Miller, Nightly Business Report, New York.
Investor disappointment over LSI Logic's revenues and earnings warnings from BMC Software and Xerox triggered an opening sell-off in technology stocks on Wall Street today, and that soon undermined the general market as the Dow Industrial Average stair-stepped its way to an 80-point loss by 11 a.m. when the NASDAQ index was down 105 points. Sizable losses in Intel, Hewlett-Packard, and J.P. Morgan kept the Dow moving lower as morning trading continued, but bargain hunters took some of the downside pressure away from the tech sector. As a result, at 1 p.m., the Dow was down 144 points, while the NASDAQ index trimmed its loss to 91 points. Continuing buying support in some of the recently hard-hit tech stocks helped NASDAQ improve slightly in afternoon trading, but the blue chips were hurt by nervousness ahead of tomorrow's employment cost index report. The Dow Industrial Average tumbled to a closing loss of 183.49 points. That's 1.7%. Now stands at 10,516.48. In today's 176-point trading range, the Dow closed down 176 points from the best level of the session, right at the low. The NASDAQ Composite finished with a loss of 41.85 at 3,987.72. In its 96-point trading range, the Composite settled only 15 points below its best level of the day, up 81 points from the low, so a little recovery there. Trading volume on the big board moved over 1.1 billion shares, well up from yesterday, and about a 7-to-4 ratio of down volume over up volume. The Dow Transport Index down nearly 9 points. Utilities fell almost 5 points, and the closing tick, however, was a feebly bullish plus 168. Standard & Poor's 500 down just over 22, 11.25 point drop on the 100. The mid-cap 400 off 1.41. The Bridge Futures Price Index edged up 0.21. New York Stock Exchange Composite down exactly 7.75 points. The Value Line Index down 1 7/8 points, and the Russell 2000 fell just over a half point. The Wilshire 5000 dropping 173 1/3 points. It was a quiet day for the bond market, but prices held their own quite well, despite plenty of caution prior to that release of the second quarter employment cost index tomorrow, which is closely watched, by the way, by the Federal Reserve. Also causing hesitation, Friday's estimate of second quarter gross domestic product. The main positive for bonds appeared to be flight to safety buying in reaction to the broad sell-off in stocks. Tax-free and corporate issues ended mostly unchanged, but the Treasury market managed to post small gains. The 5-year notes rising 2/32, the 10-year notes up 1/32, and the 30-year bond gained at 1/32 as well, and the Lehman Brothers Long Treasury Bond Index actually fell a little bit, down 0.21. I'll be back shortly to show you where the action was on Wall Street today. Linda?
Well, Paul, shares of Amazon.com fell sharply late today after the company posted after-the-bell earnings numbers showing more red ink. The internet giant lost 33 cents a share in the second quarter. That was better than analysts' forecasts of a 35-cent loss, but worse than the year-ago number. Amazon stock has been on a roller coaster on investor concerns about profitability and an analyst report last month that cast doubt on its creditworthiness. The company says that claim was, quote, hogwash. Meanwhile, Amazon closed the regular session at 36 1/16, but after-hours shares traded as low as 32.
Meanwhile, trading higher today, the shares of Daimler Chrysler. The nation's number 3 automaker beat the street in the second quarter with earnings nearly 20% better than last year. But the company also cautioned things are expected to stall in the near future. Diane Estabrook reports.
Mercedes-Benz was the primary driver of Daimler Chrysler's profits in the second quarter. The company earned $1.66 a share, 14 cents better than Wall Street projected. As expected, Daimler Chrysler issued a profit warning for the second half of the year, but analysts say the warning was old news to investors who sent the stock price higher today based on the company's second quarter performance.
The Chrysler part of Daimler Chrysler was down only 12% in operating profits. We thought it'd be down a little bit more. And Mercedes was up more than we expected. So second quarter was a little bit better. Second half still looks pretty cloudy.
What is clouding the picture for Daimler Chrysler is a glut of minivans on U.S. dealer lots. At the end of June, the company's minivan inventory was nearly 50% higher than it was the same time last year, and substantially higher than similar product inventories for GM and Ford. While Daimler Chrysler still dominates the minivan segment, tough competition from imports like Honda is eroding the automaker's market share. Analysts say the new Plymouth Voyager, due in showrooms next month, will help Daimler Chrysler maintain its hold on the minivan segment, but they also admit this is a segment with limited potential.
I think it's mature. I don't think you'll see a growth, the levels of growth you saw, but I don't think it's a declining market.
Analysts say Daimler Chrysler's future hinges on exciting new products like the PT Cruiser, and many believe the company's overall prospects look good.
As you look at the next 4 model years, the company, by our estimates, will replace 94% of its volume with entirely new product.
Both Braun and Cassessa expect Daimler Chrysler stock to remain at its current level until at least the end of this year. But they think the stock could get a pop early next year once the company starts rolling out more new products. Diane Estabrook, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
Microsoft is asking the Supreme Court to leave its antitrust appeal to a lower court, saying the case is too large and too complex for the high court. Instead, the software giant wants a federal appeals court to review the verdict and government breakup plan. The government lawyers who sued Microsoft wanted to go straight to the Supreme Court. The high court isn't expected to decide until at least September whether it will take the case. Meanwhile, Microsoft is meeting with analysts tomorrow. The number one issue for analysts isn't the legal case, but the outlook for personal computer sales.
I think the thing that we need to see to get this stock moving again is going to be some pickup in corporate PC demand and some evidence that Windows 2000 is having an impact in the marketplace.
Microsoft is telling analysts to expect a 15% earnings growth rate in the coming year. battle lines are drawn tonight between the country's major accounting firms and the regulators who keep an eye on them. The battlefield, an SEC proposal that limits industry consulting activity. As Darren Gersh explains in the first public hearing on the issue, neither side shows signs of backing down.
How seriously does Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Arthur Levitt take the issue of auditor independence? Very seriously.
In recent years, whole economies around the world have faltered because of lax standards and inadequate attention to the fundamentals of high-quality financial reporting.
And it's that high-quality reporting, Levitt argues, that independent auditors safeguard. But regulators are concerned accounting firms now make much of their money by selling consulting services to the companies they audit. The SEC fears that raises the perception of a conflict of interest as auditors become cross-sellers and marketers of business and advisory services.
And to the extent that happens, it becomes much more deferential to management and much more willing possibly to bend the numbers a little.
So the SEC is proposing new rules that would effectively bar auditors from making investments in the firms they audit. Also proposed limiting the services an accounting firm can provide to clients it audits. The accounting industry has mounted a fierce lobbying effort against the new rules, warning if adopted, they would make audits more expensive. Providing consulting services, the industry says, also helps auditors learn more about the companies they review.
It was actually an aid in performing audits, doing non-audit services, because it provided them knowledge and a knowledge base about their clients that they gained in another environment.
Accounting firms say their internal controls prevent any conflicts and call this a non-issue.
It would be very dangerous for us to take on the considerable risks that I believe the proposed rule would present. To me, it would be like doing radical surgery on a healthy patient.
The accounting industry has recruited some powerful allies. 21 members of Congress recently sent a letter to the SEC warning the agency against a rush to judgment as it considers new rules on the firms that watch over the nation's books. Darren Gersh, Nightly Business Report, Washington.
Well, there was no accounting for some of the moves we saw on Wall Street today, but most of the down moves were due to concern about future earnings. The Dow losing 183.5 points, or 1.7% of its value. For every 14 stocks up, there were almost 15 down, but 90 new highs for the year and only 78 new lows. LSI Logic topped the active list on 33.4 million shares, losing 33% of its value after the company's second quarter earnings at 29 cents were in line with estimates, but revenues lower than expected. Bear Stearns, Sullivan Smith Barney, to mention a few, lowered their expectations, cut their ratings on the stock. Compaq Computer, on the other hand, up 1 3/4, as we reported after the close yesterday. Second quarter earnings of 21 cents in line with estimates. Today, Bear Stearns upgraded it from attractive to buy. Hambrecht & Quist upgraded it from buy to a strong buy. Poor Xerox down 3 1/4, another low, another earnings warning about the second half, even though second quarter earnings came in at 30 cents in line with estimates. Pfizer dropped 5/8, AT&T losing 1 13/16, fifth in volume. Nortel Networks, which had earnings better than expected out yesterday, up 1 3/8. GE down 1 11/16. Rite Aid losing 1/4. Lucent Technologies down 1 5/16. And Circuit City down 2 1/4 after dropping 6 1/2 yesterday on the company's forecast of much lower than expected second quarter earnings of 32 cents. The street was expecting 43. AON Corporation, or Aon, up almost 3 points. The story here, Merrill Lynch upgraded it from accumulate to a near-term buy. Bear Stearns upgraded it from attractive to buy. Anheuser-Busch up 1/8 near the close of trading today. Second quarter earnings, $1.04, up from 90 cents, 2 cents above expectations. And also, Anheuser set a 2-for-1 stock split and a 10% boost in the quarterly dividend to 33 cents per share. Hershey Foods up 2 5/16. Second quarter earnings, 29 cents, in line with estimates. Kimberly-Clark up 2 11/16. Second quarter earnings, 81 cents, up from 72. That was a penny above expectations. Sullivan Smith Barney upgraded from outperform to buy. McDonald's up 1 13/16. As we reported yesterday, a little better than expected earnings. Today, J.P. Morgan and Bank of America brokerages upgraded their stock opinions. And National Semiconductor down 3 3/4. No specific news, just caught in the downdraft of the semiconductor group. ChemFab, the star of the day, up 7 5/16 on news it'll be acquired by a French firm, Saint-Gobain, for $18.25 a share in cash. Brilliance China Automotive up 5 5/16. No specific news today, but the Chinese stocks on the big board have been getting plenty of buying recently. Norfolk Southern up almost 2 points. Second quarter earnings, 30 cents, up from 20 cents last year, and revenues up a massive 32%. Alex Brown upgraded it from market perform to buy. Big loser, Nova Corp of Georgia, down 7 7/16. Yesterday, we noted it was down 3 3/4, but no one available at the company to talk to us today. A spokesman warned second quarter revenues will be lower than expected. Quantum Hard Disk Drive Group down 3 3/16. First quarter earnings 19 cents, up from a loss last year, but Solomon still downgraded it from buy to neutral. Prudential cut its 2001 earnings estimate from 71 cents a share to just break even. Fanova Group down 2 13/16, lower earnings. Second quarter 69, down from last year's 83. NASDAQ trading almost a 42-point loss there. Volume was about 1.3 billion. 15 stocks up for every 23 down. JDS Uniphase topped the active list, up 5 3/4. Just after the close, JDS reported fourth quarter earnings 14 cents up from last year's 6, 2 cents above the street estimate. Standard & Poor's 500 has a new member after the close today. It's JDS. And, of course, that's buying SDL, which dropped 9 5/16. Intel down 1 7/8. Cisco System up 7/16, a 9/16 gain in Sun Microsystems. And then we see Microsoft losing 1 3/16. Applied Materials down 2 5/8. Dell Computer managed a 116-point gain. Broadcom up 1 7/16 and 10th in volume. Oracle gained 3/4. Gemini Genomics went public today. It's a British company. 6 million ADRs offered at 14, opened at 15. The high of the day, 22 3/8. Ask Jeeves up 4 7/16 after the close yesterday. It reported a smaller than expected second quarter loss of 51 cents, 5 cents better than expectations. Today, First Union upgraded it from buy to a strong buy, and Remedy Corp couldn't find one to stop the selling today, down 19 and a large fraction. Second quarter earnings, 29 cents, a penny above expectations, but revenues below estimates. Hambrecht and Quist downgraded it, and so did Bank of America. The American Exchange Index up almost 5 points. Keene Incorporated up 3 3/16. Second quarter earnings lower, 11 cents versus 37 last year, but the company noted that second quarter was better than the first and ended a string of 6 consecutive quarters of lower revenues. It's also going to buy back 2 million shares. And A.O. Smith down 4 points, the big percentage loser. No officials available to account for that. The index shares all on the downside today. And finally, in the spotlight after the close, InfoSpace says it plans to acquire GoToNet for $4 billion in stock. 1.82 shares of InfoSpace for each share of GoToNet. That's the Wall Street wrap-up. Linda?
Well, Paul, 4 United States air carriers are in the running tonight for new air routes from the U.S. to China. The Department of Transportation is about to decide which airline will get the flights, a lucrative prospect given China's thriving economy. Georgia Public Broadcasting reporter Hamilton Northcutt explains.
The airline that is awarded this service is going to get a foot in the door in the biggest market, potential market in the world.
That's why American Airlines, along with Delta, UPS, and West Coast cargo carrier Polar Express, are all so eager to fly the 10 new weekly round-trip flights to China. In a new air services treaty struck with the U.S. last spring, China agreed to the added route. Now the Department of Transportation must award the lucrative flights to a single airline.
We're serving the biggest, strongest market in a region of the country that has no service today.
Delta wants to create service from Atlanta to New York and then nonstop to Beijing. Their primary argument, since there's currently no nonstop service from the East Coast to China, Delta would fill a huge void. Another selling point, their route would reduce flight time to China for East Coast travelers by up to 7 hours. American Airlines proposes nonstop flights from Chicago to Shanghai, geographically the shortest route.
Shanghai is the place where virtually all business passengers want to go. For the business community, Shanghai is the focal point in China.
Both American and Delta are urging the Department of Transportation to choose a passenger airline over a cargo carrier, saying people will do much more than packages to improve U.S.-China relations and create cultural ties. UPS counters that strategy by projecting tremendous economic benefits if the DOT decides in their favor.
We will be able to increase U.S. trade with China by about $8.7 billion in 4 years. We expect to lower the U.S.-China trade deficit by around $4 billion in 4 years.
UPS is itching to compete with Federal Express, which already flies to China. Northwest and United currently provide passenger service.
The Department of Transportation is expected to announce its decision soon, possibly by the end of this month, though more likely sometime in August. Whichever airline wins the highly coveted route will be authorized to begin the new flights to China in April of 2001. I'm Hamilton Northcutt in Atlanta for Nightly Business Report.
Tomorrow, what's up with Sun Microsystems? We talk with its chairman, Scott McNeely.
In tonight's Money File, the death of a tax. Here is Terry Savage, author of The Savage Truth on Money.
Remember the old saying, nothing's sure but death and taxes? Well, these days, the death tax might not be so sure after all. Astoundingly, both parties in Congress have joined to take the first step in eliminating what used to be called the estate tax. Now, maybe it's the change of name to the more appropriate death tax that awakened the politicians' ire, or maybe it's the dawning realization that many of their voting constituents, and even the politicians themselves, are likely to be subject to this tax in its current form. Rising real estate prices and rising stock prices are putting more and more middle-class families' estates within reach of the tax collector. Think about it. Your estate is everything you own: your house, cars, investments, retirement plan assets, and even life insurance if you own it yourself. Now, as recently as a decade ago, most retirees were still covered by traditional pension plans, a check a month for life, nothing after death. But today, Americans have more than $3 trillion in self-directed retirement plans, 401ks, and IRA rollovers. And all of those growing plan assets are included in your estate. For many people, the current $675,000 exclusion, or even the $1 million exclusion level that will be reached in 2006, will still leave a small fortune to be taxed at death. Well, they say you can't take it with you, but at least it's looking more likely that you won't have to leave it to the government either. I'm Terry Savage.
Recapping today's market action, red ink on Wall Street. The Dow fell 183 points and the NASDAQ index lost almost 42. And please join us at our worldwide website, NBR.com, or on America Online, keyword NBR.
Finally tonight, there are lots of winners on Wall Street, but one very special winner visited the New York Stock Exchange today. Two-time Tour de France cycling champion Lance Armstrong rang the closing bell at the big board this afternoon, wrapping up day-long tour of New York City. The world's premier cyclist who faced and beat testicular cancer says he's looking forward to winning again, this time at the Olympics in Sydney next month. And Armstrong says he's just a regular guy from Texas who likes to ride his bike, Paul.
In the same sense that Tiger Woods is just a regular guy that likes to play an occasional round of golf.
Right, right. Well, that's the Nightly Business Report for Wednesday, July 26th. I'm Linda O'Brien. Good night, everyone, and good night to you too, Paul.
Good night, Linda. I'm Paul Kangas, wishing all of you the best of goodbyes.
Nightly Business Report is produced in association with Bridge, the global financial information company providing real-time and historical market data, analysis, and news. And is made possible by A.G. Edwards, providing investment banking, cash management, and retirement plans for businesses. A.G. Edwards, trusted advice, exceptional service. Franklin Templeton, serving investors for over 50 years. Franklin Templeton and Mutual Series. Investment products distributed by investment professionals. Compact, makers of compact non-stop e-business solutions for companies who know that the online world never stops, so their information systems can't stop either. Compact, non-stop, and by the financial support of viewers like you.
Join us Friday for All Things Considered and Lost and Found Sound. We'll hear the voices of farm workers who traveled to California in the 30s in search of a better living. All Things Considered at 5 o'clock on OPB Radio.
Wall Street can be a confusing place, so if you're new to stocks or bonds, be sure to see the updated version of NBR's classic home video, How Wall Street Works. To order by credit card, call 1-800-535-5864.
Funding for local broadcast of the Nightly Business Report has been provided by viewers like you and by the following.
SAFE Corporation, managing the human and financial cost of workplace injuries. SAFE Corporation, on the job for Oregon.
CNF. Not everyone understands supply chain management, but we do. We straighten out supply chains for leading companies worldwide. CNF, where supply meets demand.
Join Scott McGregor in a railway adventure as he travels by trains across Australia. We'll travel on everything from working-class trains to the elegance of the Indian Pacific.
There's always a sense of adventure in the air as the Indian Pacific prepares to leave Sydney.
We'll travel by hand and by feed.
My very own camel train.
And visit the cities, the outback, the mountains, and the sea on railway adventures across Australia.
That's tonight at 9 here on OPB.
Thursday night, OPB salutes the legacy of the Columbia River Gorge with 2 locally produced specials. At 8:30, Paradise Road tells the story of entrepreneur Sam Hill and the historic Columbia River Highway. Then at 10, Roll On Columbia documents Woody Guthrie's brief but prolific stint writing songs in praise of harnessing the Columbia River for cheap electricity. See this slice of Northwest history Thursday night here on OPB.
Funding for this evening's programming on OPB has been provided by viewers like you and by
ENTEC International, global producers of microporous membrane materials, headquartered in Lebanon, Oregon. ENTEC International, leadership, commitment, and innovation worldwide.
The Paul G. Allen Charitable Foundation has made a significant commitment to the future of Oregon Public Broadcasting. We thank them for bringing a world of learning to all of our listeners and viewers.
I'm Jim Lara. PBS in the NewsHour will bring you live, complete coverage of the upcoming political conventions. Join me with Margaret Warner, Gwen Ifill, Ray Suarez, and Terrence Smith, plus political analysts Mark Shields and Paul Gigot. We'll be with the Republicans July 31st through August.